Right, yeah. So I'll go through the block number 4 for calling birds, and then what I thought I would do is, rather than maybe going over the bondweb bit again for the bird, I would just go over the leaf bits with the overlay of the netting, and then feather stitch. I thought I'll go through that, and then I've just used some freezer paper to do the hexagon, which worked quite nicely, so I thought I'll just talk you through that as well, so you've got some info on that one. So for calling birds, you've got your template and everything in here. So you've got all your bondweb shapes on. So that's all exactly kind of the same technique wise as what we've done previously with the blocks. So they're all labelled up on there. You've got the top of the notes, of the music notes, and the bottom of the music notes are the buttons. So if you're wondering why that looks a little bit odd, that's the reason on that one. And then for the beak, you've got the beads, so there isn't sort of a beak part on the head. You've got the layout there as well as how it all fits together. So all of that is done the way we've been doing the bondweb. And then I showed you last week when we did the little shapes on the flowers for the 3 French hens, to do it kind of the other way. So I'll just go over that one again. So for the leafy bits, oh well, actually you have got templates on there. You could either follow the templates and do it that way, or you could go freehand with this, so in the same way, in exactly the same way that we did last week. So if you want to change the shape of the leaves, you could do it the other way, completely up to you. So I thought I'll just put a leaf down and I'll cut a piece of the netting over the top. Also on the Facebook page as well, there was some lovely variations of the flowers and things, and there was some nice ones with the sort of leaves a little bit more lifted from off the surface, so where the stitch had just been made down the center to hold it so that it kind of flipped up a little bit, and that was really lovely. So if you want, you could potentially do the leaves that way if you didn't want them to be so completely flat onto the base. You could actually just have them so that they were flicking up a little bit, so there was a bit of movement in there. So that would be up to you. So we've got the main branch coming along here, and then we're going to put all of these little leaves coming off the edges. So I'll just do one as an example. So peel off the bondweb back in. Hope everyone's getting on a bit better with the bondweb. I know it's a bit tricky, but once you've done it a few times, it's kind of okay. So I'll iron that down. So this is going to stick nice and flat. And then with the netting, it's just going to be a fraction bigger, really. So I'm just going to cut it freehand. If you want to use the templates, you can cut them out if you want and use them and just make the netting a little bit bigger. And that's just going to lay over the top just to give it like a little bit of a kind of a glisten and just change the texture a little bit. And then I've just done a really simple running stitch down here, so just to kind of hold that on. So there is a little bit of movement on mine in the netted kind of layer. Oh, Lucy's there. Just let Lucy in. There we go. Yeah, so there is a little bit of movement in the netting there. So the leaves down and the net's on top, and I've just done a running stitch to hold that in place. In terms of stitches for everything else, so around the bird you've got a back stitch, so that's a solid line going all the way kind of around here, around the head, and then the legs coming down here are a back stitch, and then you've got 3 little stitches coming off each of the legs for the feet. And on the wing there's just running stitch going across here, so quite random. Again, you might want to change that up for something a little bit different. Chain stitch.
What are you using, Charlotte?
This has got a metallic in it on here.
This one, the one you sent us? This,
yeah, that's the one
on the bird.
That's it. Yeah, that just goes around the bird. Yeah,
right.
And its little legs on there. I've used the green embroidery thread on the leafy bits, and then the beige on the music notes here. So this is a back stitch around the music notes, just sort of in the middle of those. And then a feather stitch coming down here, a little bit different to the way that I showed you last time. So last time we had quite a central line coming down the middle. So I'm just going to show you that again. I've put a little video of that on. You might have already had a look on the Facebook page as well about the feather stitch, but I'll demonstrate that one. And then you've got some little beads coming onto the tail, onto the gold bit, and for the beak as well. So a couple on there for the beak. I think these ones don't particularly have too small a holes, so if you've just got a slightly narrower needle, you should be all right. I don't think you'll necessarily need to go out and get a beading needle, because I always try and avoid ones that are really, really tiny. I don't know if anyone's tried to stitch those on yet and how they've worked, but hopefully they're okay. So with the feather stitch, and this is the feather stitch here, so started doing it. So I'll just start a little fresh spot so that you can see how we get started with that. So it's kind of a little bit more kind of wiggly, if you like, this one. So it's not as centralized. So it's got a little bit more movement in the stitch. So I'm going to come up through the fabric, and I'm going to make the V in the same way that we did last time. So holding your thumb on it, coming up to the top right hand corner of the V, taking your needle in and then back out, and making sure it comes back out on top of that thread. So that's my first V made. And then last time we did a stitch straight down. This time we're going to go off to the side. So we're going to go off to the right hand side. So we're going to come up to the top of the V and then back down in the same way. And then we're going to do one off to the left. So this is, I find this a little bit tricky because we're sort of working in the opposite direction to what we've been used to. So this time I'm still holding it at the bottom of the V, but I'm coming to the top left of the V this time. And then I'm coming down to the point. And then I would go into my right one. So then I would come up here and come down on top of that stitch. And then I've got what I find a little bit tricky, the left hand one, where I've got to come up to the top and then down. Oh, and it's caught around there. And down to the bottom. So you're going straight into your V. So we were doing a long stitch and making that the central point, but this time we're sort of changing it so that they're going off to either side. Okay, so that's the feather stitch that I've done down the middle. I can show you that again in a minute as well if we need to. And the other thing that I was just going to mention is, I don't know, some of you may have, someone joining there, you might have already tried this, and it's a good tip actually, but for the numbers, just a way to keep the hexagons down, stuck down. So if you, I know some of you guys from my usual sewing class, we've used this in class before. This is freezer paper, which is quite random. I usually get it off like Amazon or eBay, and it says, what does it say again? It's great for like storing meats. It's very random, and also arts and crafts and applique. So, you know, you could always use it for storing your meats if needs be. But it's just like a roll of paper. I don't know if you can see it. A roll of paper, but it actually is sticky on one side when you iron it. You get absolutely loads and loads. I can't remember what the price of it was, to be honest. Yeah, it's called, this is Reynolds Kitchen freezer paper. And what it is really good for is cutting out shapes for appliquing and because it's sticky, it's going to stick onto the back of the fabric. So whereas with the hexagon, we've obviously been holding it in place and folding our edges and ironing them, this we could actually stick down, and it's reusable. So I've just cut another, I've just used my hexagon to cut another template exactly the same shape, and then just move that out of the way so you can see. So put it onto the back. I have got the smallest piece of silk here that I've picked up myself as well. I'll iron it. So you want the shiny side. So again, it's a bit like the Bondaweb. One side is got a bit of a sheen on it, looks a bit more plasticky. That would be the side that's got the glue on it. So you need to make sure it's glue side facing the back of your fabric. So in a similar way to Bondaweb, and just iron over that. Yeah, so that just basically is going to stick that a little bit more. Not like hugely stick it, but stick it on so it's not going to move while you then go around and iron all your crisp kind of edges. So you could then sort of like turn them in and turn your next one in, just without that slipping or moving. And once you turned it, in the same way that we were doing before, once you pressed it all, you would just peel it off and take it out. So it literally just peels off, and you can reuse that again. So we did some applique things before with I think it was when we did the bird cushions and things, and we were using these shapes, and it just helps, but you can reuse them over and over. So you might want to invest in that. If you don't, that's fair enough. But just a little tip, it might come in useful for other things, other projects that you're working on, and just make that little bit a bit easier, just because it sticks down and then it comes back off again. Was there anything else I needed? I was just going to mention as well, kits wise, what I've been working on is 5 gold rings, 6 geese lane, and 7 swans are swimming. So I've got those 3 prepared. I'm going to finish those kits off tomorrow, the last ones, and they'll go out, get posted out this week. So you're going to get 3 in your next pack, just to move it on a little bit, because I know a few people were keen to kind of get it sort of all of the packs complete by sort of the end of November-ish, or at least have them by the end of November, ready to have like a week or whatever, a couple of weeks to put everything together. So I'm going to do 3 this time, then I'm going to do 3 again, and then I'm going to do 2 at the end. So I thought next week, if we do 5 gold rings and 6 geese lane, I'll do some little video tutorials for them again, like I've been doing on Facebook, and then we'll do 2 of them in the session. And that just means that you can get a little bit ahead. I don't panic anyone. I don't want to panic anyone that's, you know, feeling like it's taken, you know, needs to take the time. That's fine. Just want to give those the option to sort of move a bit quicker if you want to. So that is the plan. So I'll show you the five gold rings as well. So this is 5 gold rings. So it's a fairly simple one. It's got quite a bit more gold in there. It's got a slightly different shade of gold as well. But I thought that's fairly simple, just mainly kind of blanket stitch, and then with the 6 geese lane, you've got something else a little bit different. So 2 in 1 week if you can, not too bad, because the number 5 is not too technical really. So that's the plan with that one. And I think I'll just stop recording, and then if anyone's got any questions or anything, we'll just carry on. So